Hey, welcome back to the podcast Game Changers with Jeff Newkirk. I'm Jeff Newkirk, and I have a great guest with me this morning. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about what we need to do in this world to make a difference. Leo Simpson is with me this morning. Leo is a professor at Lone Star Community College, one of the biggest community colleges in the country. And another thing that you do, other than being a professor, you do a lot, obviously, but I'm intrigued by the 5-star wedding officiant. What is a 5-star wedding officiant?
So glad to be here, Jeff. Glad to be able to grace the Game Changers platform and add some value to your folks. What that is on the one hand, it's a wedding officiant. On the other hand, 5-star. And I've actually...
Well, that's the intriguing part, Leo. I mean, 5-star, what does that mean?
I'm about to tell you. So my first wedding was back in May of 2010. It was my brother's wedding. And so from that time until about 2021, I may have done about maybe 4 or 5 weddings. It was more so people who were close to me and things of that nature. In 2021, I actually started doing weddings with more of a marketing strategy to, add some value to people in that area and give them the love of Pastor Leo Loves Weddings, right? And so it was a cool little
Pastor Leo's love.
Pastor Leo Loves Weddings. So, my whole marketing spiel was I love weddings. Like I've been a part of them since I was a child, the whole spiel. And so because of my love for people, love for marriage, love for family, all that kind of stuff, I just add value to people from a professional standpoint and that wedding experience. And so I have not gotten less than a 5-star for all of the people who have actually given me a review.
Well, excellent. Good for you. Good for you. And you're also a business coach, public speaker. Now, as a business coach myself, that intrigues me as well. I think we're going to have a great conversation this morning talking about the needs of business owners and leaders in our community. You've published 7 books, and you've been a featured guest on platforms with more than 130 million people. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, some of those books, what is the subject matter of those books? So, is it all leadership, or?
It goes back to what I shared with you about that umbrella perspective of family, business, life mastery, which we'll talk about. And it's a flow of all of that. It focuses on business. It focuses on leadership. It focuses on teamwork. It focuses on heartache, focuses on heartbreak, disruption in family life, focuses on marriage, focuses on prayer. It really gets into a full scope of the things that I know and the value that I'm able to add. It's really designed to give people an inspirational experience of receiving what they need so that they can do what they need to do in the various areas of their life. So it's
awesome
and comprehensive approach, but ultimately under that umbrella of 1, inspiration, and 2, family, business, life mastery.
Wonderful. And so let's talk about the family, business, life mastery. I mean, that's a mouthful. Yeah. And I got to know a little bit more about what that is. And I'm sure the folks want to know what that is so they can plug it into their own lives.
Yeah. So let's hear about it. So, one of the things about family, business, life mastery for me is it really connects with my clarity of the problem that I solve and who I solve that problem for. And I love to tell the story about, for 10 years, I really didn't know the importance of a niche. Like I really kind of fought niching for 10 years. I started as a certified. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt there, but you say niche. I say niche too. And I hear so many people say niche. I'm not a niche guy.
It's all good.
I'm a niche guy. I'm glad to hear you say niche.
Yeah, niche, it's kind of like tomato, right?
Yeah, but I'm a niche guy.
I like niche. It just feels good to me. Almost like a twitch too, And so I started back in 2012 as a certified leadership coach, teacher, and speaker with the John Maxwell team. And, one of the things they talked
Right
about
on.
was,
John Maxwell.
yeah, that he's my guy. I'll tell you a quick story about him in a little bit, specific to me. And so one of the things they really talked about is like niche down into your thing. And I was always that guy that said, hey, I serve everybody, right? And I really didn't understand the importance of understanding your niche. And, I struggled for, again, like I said, 10 years, not really being able to get traction and add value the way that I needed to until this past November. I was participating in the Great American Speak Off competition with the 10X Stages organization, Pete Vargas, Grant Cardone, all those folks.
Yeah.
And
A
little
lot of
did I
energy
know,
there.
oh,
A lot
lots
of
of
energy.
energy, man. Little did I know it was less about the competition and about a transformational discovery I was going to have. And they took us through the 2 clarity questions, what problem do you solve and who do you solve that problem for? And Pat Quinn, who actually is a business partner with Pete Vargas, really gave some significant clarity about how to really answer those 2 questions. And crazy enough, I was planning to do that workshop virtually, but somebody encouraged me to go face to face. The power being in the room, Jeff.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Here
Got
we are
in the
on Zoom,
room.
but you're absolutely right.
Man, this is a different interaction. Come on now. I got in the room and I was able to say, hey, Pat, come here. And I asked him a couple questions. He helped walk me through in less than 2 minutes. I had been trying to figure out for 10 years my niche and even fighting it. And in less than 2 minutes, he helped me to niche down to understand at the general level, my focus is families or professionals with families, right? But at the specific level, it's that executive leadership focus of CEOs, business owners, and executives to really help them bridge the gap and straddle well between the worlds of their family life and their business life, and not just pursue achieving work-life balance. That's a whole nother conversation, but really achieving mastery in their family life and business life. And we might talk a little bit about it as far as the detail, but that was transformational because I learned that I was someone who was able to be excellent in business, but also excellent in family, but show people how to translate between the 2 environments and create a cohesive value through mastery. And so that's why we termed it family, business, life mastery, because it's 1, it's about family. 2, it's about business. It's about life, but it's about mastering all of them as one cohesive reality.
That's so interesting because in today's world, we're really torn different directions, right? I mean, in the workplace, we've got to be at the top of our game. We've got to put in, 10, 12, 16 hours a day sometimes. But our family is of utmost importance. I mean, as leaders in our families, we have to set the example. We have to be there. So that means we have to be, present, really present, not just physically be there. And so there's a real challenge to make sure that we're at the top of our game in both places. How do you make that happen?
Man,
that's tough.
Man, we start with making sure people understand you got to shift your mindset. I know a lot of times people, they minimize the focus on mindset, but you got to understand if you're making money, it's because there's a success mindset that's predictably productive all the time. It starts there, right? And it flows through.
I love that. I love that. It's in your head, right?
Yeah, it starts in your head.
And you can say, saying it's a mindset, that's easy to say, right? But it is not easy to do.
Come on, man. That is powerful. And that's one of the things that I learned is that first of all, it starts with a lot of times people have this separate thought process of family life and business life. Notice I say family life and business life. I don't say work life. The reason I don't say work life is because work and life are basically synonymous. I mean, all of my parents are deceased, Jeff. I mean, It's an unfortunate reality, but it's also a fortunate value because I've learned how to leverage that and be able to communicate the wisdom of the reality of if they were here versus them not being here type of thing. And I can always ask this question to people, can they work? The answer is no, they can't work. Why? Because they don't have life. So that speaks to us that
wow, that's profound.
I know it is, man.
Seriously, man, that's profound.
So work and life are essentially synonymous. So to say work life, you're not going to achieve any success there, first of all, but then to try to achieve balance, you can't, because balance is able to be achieved by having two measures on opposing sides that achieve equality. Well, these two dynamics of our family life and our business life, you try to separate them, they actually become a problem because they don't have equal manners of functionality. Here's why. Family life requires more of a quality of time than quantity of time. And then business life requires more of a quantity of time than a quality. And the reason being is because family life has life source, business life has no source of life. So it needs a life source to fuel it, which is why we got to spend more time. So I start with helping people understand those realities. And one of the main things is to understand that family life and business life are meant to be teammates and not opponents. Like when we start there.
That is so true. That is so true. I mean, I used to say years ago when I started out as in corporate, and I'd say, hey, whatever happens in your personal life, you leave it at the door. This is work. You come into the office, it is all work. And that was so naive and incorrect and impossible. It blends over. You know, whatever is happening at home with your family, it's going to blend over. It's going to tie over to what you're doing during the day at work. It's impossible to separate those two. And I think it's important for us to realize that and be sensitive to the fact that, hey, somebody might have something going on at home that's going to impact them at work. You know, somebody might have something going on at work, and then, you know, at home, it's going to impact the family. It's impossible to separate the two.
Absolutely. So, you know, I have a concept that I call the trilogy of transformation. I don't want to get into too much detail of it, but I do want to kind of jump into.
We've already learned a lot from you, Leo.
I do have, man, I probably got over 20 hours of content for free on my YouTube channel that people can access. They can get to it through team30.com. Even just go to YouTube, Leo Simpson second, they can get to it. But I want to
give it a plug. How can people get there?
Yeah, it's team30.com, or they can go to YouTube and type in Leo Simpson II and you'll find my pretty face. Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
And cool. So the reason that, you know, I deal with it the way I do is because I try to help people understand, one, the trilogy of transformation is this. There's misleading beliefs that cause us to crash and burn with regard to our family life while we're winning, perceptively winning in our business life. But then there's some accurate beliefs. When you understand them, they will destroy those misleading beliefs and then put you on the trajectory to be able to now leverage the master keys of family life and business life, right? So within the context of the accurate beliefs is the thought process of achieve flow, achieve fuel or make fuel, and then create focus. So I'll explain that in just a moment, but listen to this carefully. Achieve flow, right? That's the opposite of trying to balance, right? That right there is better because it allows for family life and business life to be what they uniquely are, and then goes into make fuel in that you put them on a continuity structure, not a scale structure. Okay, very important. If you put family life and business life on a scale structure, it's always going to be a fight back and forth. Instead of them actually working together to achieve equilibrium, they're going to fight because you can never put equal amounts of time, energy, and effort. So presence of time is not the same thing as presence of mind. Very important, Jeff.
Boy, that's true.
Presence of time is not the same thing as presence of mind. So if somebody understands how to, when they're with their family, value the time at its highest level. When they're not with their family, there's still value of their family, because the value from the family life is now in that context of fuel. So we've achieved, what is it? I just said it. I just confused myself. Achieve flow. I got excited.
We're all keeping up with you, man. We're learning
Achieve
a lot,
flow.
but you got a lot of download happening here.
Yeah, you got to achieve that flow, Jeff. Once you achieve that flow between your family life and business life, where one is flowing into the other and out of that one back into the other, it's just this ebb and flow. And literally, if you go into your mind and you think about 2 points on a circle, they never pass each other up, but they might come close to each other. But no matter where they are, they're always going to be in the same position, behind and before, always. So there's never an overlap. There's never a fighting. There's always, hey, if I got to spend more time with family, that's cool. But there might be some time where I spend less time with family and it goes into business, and there's more time in the business, and I just keep flowing. That's it. Because the reality is that we need who we are in family to flow into business, because it's what gives us the goodness to fuel it. So that's where the fuel comes in, to where all of the value from your family life, which goes back to the naivety that you actually exhibited at the beginning, because I did too. Leave it at home. No, you can't.
Right,
it actually is designed to build you and to give you focus. It's designed to build confidence. It's designed to give you creativity. The way you solve problems in your family life is to spill over into your business and help you solve problems there. If you go, I was just listening to Myron Golden earlier, and he talked about how he had to learn how to play the guitar in a certain way. And he said, the reason I had to is because when I coach a business owner in the future, when I coach an executive, when I coach an entrepreneur, there's going to be a problem that they need solved, that I'm going to be able to look at the major scale and get my solution for it. It's the same thing with family. We've got to understand that our connection and our deep intimacy, be it at the level of marriage, then at the next level of parenting, and then the friendships that develop in that private space, that helps us to have an appropriate view of team, which goes then into, from the achieve flow to make fuel to now create focus, to understand that these two have a relationship of interdependency. They are independent, but they are also dependent on one another, so that they operate in their context, but then they need the other in order to give more validity and value as well as viability to one another. And so when people understand that that's really the context with which you should think about your individual existence, then everything really comes together and looks like one to you, which is why when people say, man, you're doing a lot of stuff. No, I do one thing. I just wear different hats. Just like we got different hats in the closet. It's the same thing. I could put on my baseball cap today. I could put on my golf cap tomorrow. My trucker's cap the next day. I could put on my cowboy hat the next day. It's different hats, but it's the same head. You see?
Right. That's true. Different hats, same head. So what happens though when you are in a toxic work environment, or maybe there's something going on at home that there's just really uncertainty, it's there's instability. It's hard, I think, to get that flow because you're not getting fuel from one or the other. So
Correct.
How do you work through that?
So it starts with, there's always a perspective that is absent when you have that type of problem, right? So remember I said in the trilogy of transformation, there is the first level of misleading beliefs. You've got to understand that if you're not productively producing, then that means that there's an absence of predictable perspective that you're not leveraging, right? And so if you're experiencing chaos should actually be your advantage. I don't know if you're familiar with the words of Napoleon Hill that said, every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. See, what we tend to do is we focus more on our problem and our adversity rather than see the problem and adversity as our advantage. I'll give you an example of how I look at it. So I used to work for UPS, and you probably saw that in my deal. I mentioned Fortune 50 company. I didn't say the actual name. Yep. And so I started with UPS as a seasonal driver, and in 7 months I was in management, right? I came for a purpose, right? And so one of the things that I did was I took that experience and I was able to use it in conjunction with Napoleon Hill's concept of every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. And I'll tell you why I figured this out, how to use that with my daughter. At the time, I think she was 7 years old. And so how I used, and this goes back to family business life mastery, right? How I used the concept of UPS is my daughter loved when she would see a UPS vehicle. She'd say, UPS, because I taught her how when we would have to deliver packages, we would have to say, UPS, knock on the door, UPS. So she started, UPS. She'd see the vehicle, it's all good. And I asked her this question. I said, now let me ask you, is that vehicle loud? She said, yeah. Is it huge? Yeah. Does it take up a lot of space? Yeah. I say, but don't people love to see it? She's like, yeah. I said, why? Because they got something that's being delivered. They're expecting something exciting. Presents coming, especially during Christmas time, man. I can't tell you how awesome it was to see the spirit of, delivering gifts to people. People would see, oh, thank you so much. We was hoping we would get all those types of things, right? Well, if we look at our problems as they're actually indicators and not things that are designed to destroy us, then we will understand that it's communicating to us that there's an absence of something that we need to leverage in order to have the predictable productivity that we really should have. So it sounds kind of nuanced, but the truth is, it's very simple. If you're experiencing a problem, there's an absence of a perspective that you're not leveraging that you should have authority over and within your life. And once you get that, all it's going to be is like cheese at that point. It's going to be easy.
Well, I think it's difficult to get to that mindset where you can overcome, especially a toxic work environment.
Yeah.
Home, you may have a little bit more control over, working towards a resolution of whatever's going on at home. At work, probably a little bit more challenging unless you are the decision maker. Mm-hmm. But if you are not the decision maker and you are answering to somebody else who's creating the toxic environment, that's going to take a tremendous level of maturity in order to get through that tough situation. Because if you've ever worked in a toxic environment, and I've worked in more than my share, you really have to step back and really get proper perspective on what's going on and realize that it's not what you're doing. It's not what you are contributing to the situation. So you have to separate yourself from what's happening. And in order to do that, that takes, I think, some experience of having gone through it, but it definitely takes a certain level of maturity and that really super positive attitude and level of confidence.
I'll tell you what I do. And I teach this to executives, professionals alike. And I communicate that we need to look at ourselves and others at the level of our potential. Okay, here's what I mean.
Yep.
If we look at ourselves at the level of our potential, we first have to understand our potential is made up of, I always tease people and I say, so, do you know the types of potential you have? And so they'll start listing like leadership and, management and all. And I say, well, just so you know, there's only two. And they're like, what? It's like, there's only two types of potential. And I say it's fulfilled and unfulfilled, right? And so then you've got to understand there's three elements of converting your potential, meaning you've got to unlock, your unfulfilled potential, you've got to leverage your unfulfilled potential, and you got to maximize your unfulfilled potential in order to convert it from unfulfilled to fulfilled, right?
Yeah,
And
and you have to
technically,
know what that is. You have to know what you're
exactly,
working towards. Yeah.
exactly. The third thing is, there are 15 laws, and I got those from John Maxwell, that enable you to predictably tap into your potential. And the first two of the 15 is the law of intentionality and the law of awareness, right? And that goes back to what you just said. But here's why I bring that up. When we get into these environments, if it's working out the way we want it to, if it's not working out the way we want it to, it really doesn't matter, because we need to know that whatever environment we're going into, it's working on us, even if it's not working for us, right? And that means it's going to give us value. So that toxicity in that environment, if we focus on the toxicity, then we miss out on what the toxicity is supposed to build in us for what it is we're supposed to do next. Right. And so we've got to make sure,
And
going back to maturity.
Exactly. Yes, that's
You got
exactly what I was
to
going to say.
focus on what you need to focus on. You got to focus on intention and have the appropriate awareness so that you're not disrupting the fact that you're living a life of mastery. See, life really is about mastery, which is why it's family, business, life, mastery. Family is really how we come into our existence. Business is how we take care of our existence. And then at some point, we discover that this thing is really about life, right? But we can have family life, we can have business life, we can have life. But if we don't become masters of our family life, if we don't become masters of our business life, if we don't become masters of life, meaning we're not masters in the sense that we are taskmasters that are unjust and unreasonable. We become masters in the sense that we are subduing and taking authority for the things that we're supposed to, and we're being a support and a conjunctive contributor to the things that we're not supposed to dominate, which is that's the value of how we collaborate and connect as people, right? We collaborate and connect as people by understanding, man, this changed my world. So let me go back and drop in what I thought about John Maxwell. I think it'll be pretty cool with the connection of the connection of my clarity. So I told you I started with the organization back in 2012, but when I was in college back in 2002, when I started in college, I happened to go to the Christian bookstore, and I was just kind of walking in there, and I saw the Maxwell Leadership Bible. I thought John Maxwell was somebody who was deceased, because I thought everybody who had the name on the Bible or something like that
was dead.
Was deceased. I mean, that was just my thought process, right? And so somehow I happened to come across a video of him. I was like, you mean he's alive?
He started out as a pastor.
Yeah, he did. He did. And an incredible story, which is one of the reasons that I resonated and connected with his content, because I came out of that world. I don't want to say come out of that world, but I mean it from the standpoint of my grandfather was a pastor for 30 plus years. My dad ended up pastoring for about 15 years before he passed away. Like, that was an environment that I know very well. And there's so much value he brought. But here's the unique piece there. Being a part of that organization and them focusing on niching for those people who say niching. I didn't really understand the power of niching in that our niche is the same thing as our fingerprints, right?
Okay.
When you really get down into your niche, you really understand that there's no competition with what you do. You might be, like me, a business coach. That's what both of us are. We're executive coaches, but I don't coach executives with the same thing that Jeff does. And I can't. I never will, because there's a unique fingerprint of value that Jeff offers that Leo doesn't, and vice versa, right?
Vice versa, right.
So it can literally be where, for example, Jeff is my coach, and then I can be Jeff's coach. And people don't like that thought process, but it's only because there's a problem that you solve that I can't solve for me, and vice versa. And so when you understand that,
but that's okay.
That's absolutely okay, because that's the collaborative.
That's how we get better. I
Man,
learn
that's
from
it.
you. You hopefully can learn a little something from
That's
me.
it, Jeff.
And we have to be open-minded to that and receptive to
Man,
it.
that's it. It's
Because
the
how many people
collaborative.
are not? How many people are not receptive to it?
So
That's the
many.
problem.
So
Too
many.
many. Too many. If we had folks in, especially in executive level positions, I don't even want to say leadership because sometimes they call it, yeah,
There's a
completely.
difference.
Thank you. Yes, there's a huge difference.
I'll tell you about it in a moment.
But if they were receptive to learning something, learning more from somebody that is different from them, somebody that can add value to them, somebody that can give them a different perspective on a problem or an issue that they're going through, man, things would be so much better.
Mm-hmm.
But we close up and we say, no, I can figure this out on my own, or I'm, too insecure that I don't want to admit, I don't want to be vulnerable and admit that I have an issue. Have some humility. We all have issues. We all have things that we got to work through. Leo can probably help me out. I'm going to listen to what Leo has to say. If we all had that thought process, man, we'd solve a lot of problems.
That's a part of why I do family business life mastery, because you get the majority of that growth in that dynamic from your private interactions in your family life. I saw that when we think like you just spoke of in our private environment, that's when we grow with the greatest humility, right? One of the titles of my books is I Hate My Wife. A new view on hatred in marriage.
I don't know. Do you want to tell us about that book?
I'll tell you about it. A new view on hatred in marriage. That's the subtitle. Why? Well, I often ask people, can marriage become better by hatred? And most people are like, no. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. So if you're on a bridge and you step to the edge of it and there's a person right there by the bridge and they say, hey, just for your information, if you step down, you're going to plunge to your death. What are most people going to do? I get two answers particularly. What do you think? What would you say in that situation?
I'm not going to go. I mean, step back.
Yeah, that's one of the answers I get. I'm going to take a step back.
Right.
And then other people say, man, I'm running the other direction. Right. Here's what the power of that is. If you know what can destroy you with great clarity, you have the greater clarity of what will give you the greatest value and benefit in life. And so because now you have this very clear delineation of if I go this way, I'm going to plunge to my death, you have a very clear delineation that if I go this way, obviously I'm going to be good. It's the same way with hatred. When you know with clarity what hatred is in general, but specific to marriage, you know what hatred looks like, then now you can very intentionally and precisely know what love is.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I saw what the clear context of what hatred was that I realized the meshing of hatred and love and how I was really hating my wife and didn't even know it.
Dang, that is profound.
And so
when you blew us all away.
When you take that perspective, Jeff, and you say, so how does that correspond to a business owner becoming a better business owner? Well, I'll tell you this. I became more profound and prolific, not tooting the horn, but just speaking from the thought process and the reality of excellence. I became more precise, more effective as a leader professionally because I have become more effective as a leader privately.
Amen.
See, that right there, when you get that in your private, now you have a personal credibility you need nobody to give you because you know you have a legitimate humility and an understanding of the profound responsibility you have as a leader and even as one to follow the benefit and needs of another person to add value to them, to where now you can listen better to your clients. Now you can understand how to have a better sales conversation, how to have a greater negotiation exchange, how to understand I might need to get this client because the client needs me more than I need the dollar. You see, that's the value of being able to have I Hate My Wife as something that's related to the mastery of business life and family life, you see? And so I talk about leadership. So last semester in the spring, I did a class that was called Problem Solving and Decision Making. Oh my goodness. They should have called it business psychology, but it was great that they called it what they did. Anyway, one of the things
probably had more students with the name of problem solving as opposed to business psychology.
No, actually, I had only about 11 students, so I think it probably would have been. It might have been a little bit more with the business psychology because people probably would have been a little more curious, right? It's true. So, what I harped on the whole term was the difference between leadership and management, and I said, "Listen, let's understand this. let's get this clear." Leadership is about people and thoughts. Management is about processes and things. And how we interact with leadership is
different. Totally
through finesse.
Different.
Like you got to have finesse with leadership because you have people's emotions, you have people's choices and decisions, people's personal authority in that. So you can't go in and force somebody's emotions. You can't force somebody's decisions. You have to influence them, right?
Well, that's a John Maxwell right
there.
Come
on now. You know, that's my teacher, right? You got to influence.
Being able to influence.
Is influence. Nothing more, nothing less, right?
That's right. That's right.
But management is force, which is why it's in the context of our processes and our things. So you look at it, if somebody says, oh, I manage 50,000 people. No, you lead 50,000 people. You manage the processes of 50,000 people, right?
So from your perspective, and I love talking about leadership and how important it is in our world and how void it is today. Mm-hmm. We do not see strong and effective leaders in positions where we need them. So from your perspective, and I've asked this often, what are like the 2 or 3 characteristics, I call them absolutes, but what are those absolutes that are required in being a strong and effective leader?
So what you don't hear is credibility and privacy.
Okay.
Credibility in your private life. If you're not winning as a leader in private, and I'm talking about you listen well and you lead well in private, right? You learn well in private, right? If you're not doing that in private, you're going to suck in public, right? You're going to suck professionally. I'll just call it what it is, right?
Yeah.
You can probably be like a blind squirrel that finds a nut every once in a while where you actually have some successes, but ultimately you got to have credibility in private, right? The second thing is you must know that in order to lead, you must be less, right?
In order to lead, you must be less.
Exactly. Okay. You must be less important. You must be less valuable, which means that you've got to see yourself as the one that carries the greater weight and burden, right? Now, that doesn't mean you're doing all the work, but that's why it goes back to mindset. See, Myron Golden talks about the 4 levels of value, and really he also speaks of it from the context of the process of life. And the 4 levels from top to bottom: imagination, communication, unification, implementation. As you get lower on that level, on those levels, you're using more of muscle. When you get higher, you're using more of mindset. And you get paid more at the level of mindset than you do at the muscle set, just to be honest, because you're using a spiritual context at the higher level and you're using a physical. You're always going to get paid less when you do the physical, right? So we're not talking about physical work and burden. We're talking about you've got to carry the greater emotional burden, the greater belief burden, and the greater thinking burden. And if you don't do that by being what? Less, meaning you need to learn more, which means that you have to not talk as much. Man, that was one of my hardest challenges.
Well, we
You
have
gotta
2 ears
listen
and
more.
1 mouth.
You
So there you go.
Man, one of the things, and you gotta learn to be less. Watch this. John Maxwell wrote a book entitled Good Leaders Ask Great Questions.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that transformed my life being a part of the John Maxwell organization was learning that you want to be a coach more than being a speaker, right? And I fought that idea because I was like, man, I got to shoot some perspective out there. But what you've got to understand is the difference between the coach and the speaker. The main difference is not just the speaker communicates and things that sort, shares ideas and so on and so forth.
Right.
The speaker communicates, but that's primarily release. The coach receives to empower release, right? And when the coach knows how to ask great questions.
Great questions. Right.
I'm talking about to ask the question that draws out the solution that's already within the problem. It changes the game. That's where you've got to be less. The leader has to be less in his mind, less valuable, less focused on himself, less important, even though the outer world is going to make the CEO, the executives, the business owners, the people that are premier. You got to understand you truly are the servant. And if you don't see the value, then the value will not be able to be present.
Yeah, you have to have that service mindset. You have to have the thought process of, I am here to add value. I'm here to serve, and I'm here to add value to the situation. I'm here to add value to other people, and I'm here to try to make whatever we're working on, whatever the situation is, better.
Yes.
And it's not about you. It's about everybody but you.
Absolutely.
And until you can adopt those thought processes, it's not going to happen as a leader for you. It's just not, because so many people get into this executive level position and they think, well, I'm at this level now, so people need to serve me. Mm-hmm. Now, they might actually not say that and, say those words, but if they have that in their head, that they're they're the top person and people work for them. No,
we work for
you actually work for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the
for
reasons
us to have that mindset.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I mentioned that collaborative contribution, especially with regard to understanding your niche, because when you know what problem you uniquely solve, you understand really the leader you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be that leader to, right?
Yeah.
It's service, because the solution that we uniquely provide for the problem that so many people have, it really shows us if we are humble or proudful, right? See, if I was the person that was like, well, a lot of people not going to really get down with this family business life mastery thing and all this kind of stuff, who am I focused on? Focused on me. I'm focused on what I feel about it, what I think about it. I'm focused on all of the negativity and all that. Guess what? The negativity is designed to help to build you, right? Why are you focused on it? Matter of fact, listen to it, receive it. It's designed to be feedback. It's designed to be actually some focusing for you. But you've got to understand you are designed to serve people in a unique way. And I love this because when you do it for a fee, what you get is you get a double benefit. One, you get a tangible measure of their success and their transformation, but you then get to see them be transformed beyond the amount of money they gave you. So you really get this tangible thing that is a static reality that allows you to give value in the marketplace, but you get to see how if you hadn't gotten that, you would have not been able to see the measure of the whole interaction of you being humble as a true leader to provide your solution.
Well, Leo, isn't it true that when you're talking about leadership to a group of people, and you may be getting paid for it, but when you get the feedback that somebody says, wow, that really was inspirational. That helped me transform into a leader that's going to add value, and they're going to walk away with some really critical, important nuggets that they can apply to their position, their life, work, home, whatever, both, and make a difference. That's better than any amount that you're going to get paid.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example real quick. So I did a concession pricing for a client. I think it was last year. It was a executive who was transitioning in his life. He was going through a divorce. He was having some transitions in his business life. It was a number of things happening for him. He was getting ready to move to another city. And he was like, man, like, I really think you can help me. You know, I want to do some sessions with you. Like, what can we work out as far as that pricing? So I said, you know, here's what we're going to do. I did a concession. I'm talking about probably 50% concession for this guy. And we met for 8 weeks. He got some ideas from my coaching in his session. And about 2 weeks ago, he sent me a message saying, man, I just want to give you an update that in September, we're going on a year of business of this company that I started as a result of an idea that I got from our sessions. And we literally at the point to where this year in year one, we will have broke over $600,000.
Not bad.
Is that better than the amount of money I got paid? Absolutely. Right? Even if I would have paid him if I would have charged him the full amount, the fact that he was able to get what he needed to be transformed and have a trajectory shift in his professional pursuits was all the worth to me.
And not to mention what that change in his work and in owning that business means to his life in general.
Yeah, they're doing 20K a week right now.
But I mean, what he's done with his personal life is probably huge. Yeah, absolutely.
See,
so the impact that you've had on that one person, you can't really put a dollar.
You can't even measure it. Like he's in a position to where he moved back to his hometown. He saw that was the need for him. The business growth is just astronomical. His son is in the environment where he's thriving the most. He's in a new relationship, a relationship that is healthy. I mean, all those different things, man, around people, not only who love him and support him, but he's given so much value to them and it's being reciprocated. That's family business life mastery.
That's awesome.
At its finest.
That's awesome. Leo, this has been such great conversation. I knew I was going to learn a ton from you, and I have, and I know everybody has. But before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you another question that I asked many guests. And so here's the question. Well, I don't know. What do you think I'm going to ask you?
I can't remember it, but I remember hearing it.
Okay. All right. So Leo Simpson is now president. You are president of the United States. What are the first 3 tasks that you have on your list to accomplish?
Man.
President Simpson, take it away.
President Leo. So I know one of the first things that presidents are doing is signing executive orders. That's the first thing that I would do, is not sign executive orders first.
Okay. All right.
The reason I wouldn't is because even though there would be advising to do so and things of that sort, I want people to know that the focus is not doing, but being, right?
Okay.
I want it to be that you understand I will listen and learn before I lead. And to come in signing orders that actually speaks against really what a true leader is. One of the people that I saw who did that well was Carlos Gomes is his name, who took over Nissan some years ago. He came in and he listened and he learned and he transformed Nissan. Like, that was a powerful
Yeah.
perspective. So that's the first thing I would do is I wouldn't sign executive
I love
orders.
that. I love that because how can you make good decisions and change, which is basically what an executive order is, unless you really know what the people need and want? And the only way you're going to know that is if you listen and learn.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I love that, Leo.
It's powerful. I got that from John. He said, listen, learn, lead. That's what you do.
Exactly.
And so that's the first thing I would do. I would not sign executive orders. The second thing that I would do is I would hear from the people who could be recommendations for cabinet seats, right?
Okay.
The reason I would do that is because even though I may have people I select, I would still like to know what type of people the people resonate with, right?
Right.
Because
I mean, we may have a certain thought process and who needs to be in that position, but who are we to make that call? Yep. Right? We got to get some input.
I want data, right? I want data. I want to know, what do the people think? And that's going to tell me the type of person I need to select. That's going to let me know where the greatest needs are and how I can actually get right to those needs. So no executive orders, get some feedback from the constituency on who would they recommend for those roles and why. And the third thing that I would do is, man, I would go on a 50-state tour of listening.
Leo, how do we get you into politics, man? I mean, we need people like you.
You can't. Okay, I'll answer that differently. You can't get me to run for office, but you can get me to advise the leaders. That's how. And that's really my role.
Fair enough.
You know, I came to a conclusion years ago, man, and I'm not that old. I'll be 40 this year, but
you're young.
Yeah, I mean,
you got a lot of years in you.
A lot of them, like another 60 to 70. I'm working on it too, man. Good. And I came to a conclusion a number of years ago, Jeff, that politics was not my lane. And it wasn't because I see no value in it or no opportunity. But if you don't know who you are, no one will ever know who you are.
Yeah. And for years, I thought maybe I can make a bigger difference if I'm in politics. So there was part of me that was like, maybe I'll run for office someday. Maybe I'll try to get into some office and make a bigger difference. But reality set in, and I saw so many people that were running for some elected position that were compromising who they were in order to get into that position. So they were really negotiating what their core values are. I'm not going to do that. I will never negotiate my core values. Those are my non-negotiables. I'm going to be true to who I am. And the reality is, I probably wouldn't do well in politics. I don't think I would.
You know, as you say that, as we get ready to close, I'll say this. I believe that family business life mastery is going to be and capable of being a transformational construct in the context of all of our political environment, commercial environment, family environment, culture environment. And in me saying that, my thought process is this, Jeff. The truth is this: the people who sit in seats of government, the people who are educators, the people who are public servants, under those who sit in the seat of government, the people who are business owners and employees, you know where they all come from? Families.
True. That's true.
So if we return to a thought process that the value that we see in our environment our public environment actually comes from the value that's being cooked up in the private environment, we'll see change.
You said public servants, and it just kind of hit me. I think so many forget that they are public servants,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they're there to serve the public, not themselves. Right?
You know who's the greatest public servant today?
Who's that?
The truth?
Yeah, let's hear it.
The entrepreneur.
Ah, I like it.
Because the
I like it.
entrepreneur creates value that goes beyond them every time they create value.
Right. As
And
long
so
as they continue with that thought process of adding value and staying humble. When entrepreneurs turn out to be billionaires, sometimes that humility dissipates.
Now watch this real quick. Some people would say, Leo, you grew up in a church environment, your father's preacher, you're Pastor Leo, all this kind of stuff. Why wouldn't you say a preacher? It's because even if you go and look at some of the writings of Paul, he was encouraging people to be entrepreneurs, meaning he was encouraging those Christian believers to engulf themselves as impactful in the systems more than standing in a place of teaching. Because you could teach more with solutions and actions than you can with concepts and constructs.
Boy, that's true. That is true.
That's why because the entrepreneurs connect every facet of our environment, the government, the culture, the economy, and the morale.
All right. Great conversation. Go, right? Well, no, I have to ask you one more question before we wrap up because I want to know. And so this is game changers, right? Obviously, you're a game changer. Everything that you've done, we've talked about. Awesome. And I know that your future, man, sky's the limit for you, Leo. You have so much to offer. People are going to continue to learn so much from you. Thank you for everything that you've done and what you're going to do in the future. Yeah. And I want to stay in contact, and I want to bring you on because we have more to talk about.
Sure.
But I want to know from you, who do you think is the biggest game changer in our world today for the better? Who is out there today, anyone in the world, who you think is making our world a better place?
Myron Golden.
Wow, you didn't even take a second to think about it. All right.
Myron Golden.
So how can people learn more about Myron Golden?
Go to YouTube and type in Myron Golden.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
I'll tell you why, man. Myron, on a personal note, and I was going to see if you're going to give me a caveat with that question, if it was like anybody or if it was somebody that people knew. I was listening because Myron did or I would say Myron has been able to do something that I have not seen too many people do in a long time. And that is to be a grounded person with riches and a grounded person in spiritual things without any compromise.
Takes a lot to do that.
It takes a lot. And I told my family this, my wife and my children, I said, growing up, the person that I idolized the most was my father and my grandfather, my mom's dad and then my father. And there were some things I saw about them that I questioned later on, and they are still men of integrity and excellence to me. But there were some things that they couldn't give me. And even some things that they probably should have been able to give me because of the roles that they were in, that lack of understanding and maybe lack of exposure affected. But what I was looking for from them, I saw it in this man. And I was like, I want to be like that man. See, this is why I think he's helping to change the world in a unique way, in a powerful, game-changing way. We should be able to look at a man, a human being, man or woman, and say, I want to be like them because the attributes and characteristics that they exhibit are things that are transferable to us. I don't want to have that man's wife. I don't want to have his children. I don't want to have his business, his exact life, or anything. but what he has in him, I want it in me.
You want to aspire to be like that.
I want to aspire to see that same value. And we have lost that. We are looking at people who are lascivious, ludicrous, and just all about themselves, and saying that because they can get something going viral and shaking the tail feathers and everything else, wear the clothes. No, we got to get away from that, because there are some.
We do, but people are learning from that. That's the problem. That's the problem.
It is people like him that I think are being game changers at a great level.
Perfect. Love it. So, Leo, how do people learn more about you and get in contact with you so you can work with them?
Man, you can go to team3l.com. That's TEAM 3l.com. And there's a number of things there. It'll get you connected with my social media, to get you connected with some of my free content, anything that we might be doing going forward. We're actually working on getting our new company, Inspire the Globe, situated. That's going to be our primary focus of content delivery and solution creation, where we're straddling well between strategy and execution. Like, we're giving you content, but we're also giving you some constructs and some solutions, right? And so people will be able to see that there, as well as on my YouTube. So that team3l.com is going to be a hub for a long time.
Good. Okay. Well, I hope a lot of people reach out to you. You have so much to offer, and I've learned a lot today already, and I know I'm going to learn more from you in the future. Leo Simpson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And
so
before
much.
I totally wrap up, I want to thank my sponsor, Magic Mind. I don't know if you've ever tried this product, Leo. Magic Mind. It's like a 2-ounce little drink that you take in the morning with your coffee, and it gives you focus and energy throughout the day. And I have to admit, I was sort of suspect when I first tried it. And I've tried several times now, Magic Mind, take it every morning with my coffee, and it just keeps me focused throughout the day. So I want to thank Magic Mind for being a sponsor of Game Changers. You can find Magic Mind at magicmind.com. And it's got all kinds of good herbs and ingredients in it, like turmeric, vitamin C, vitamin D3, all things that I can't even pronounce. So good stuff. Magic Mind at magicmind.com. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to Game Changers. This has been another great episode. Leo Simpson, thank you for being here. Look forward to having you come back.
Pleasure.
Have a great day, everybody. I know it was a great one, and I know tomorrow is going to be even better. Peace, everyone.